Thank you for joining us this evening. Good evening to the SARS leadership, our traders, our taxpayers, the clearing agents, our tax brokers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hansen Msongweni. I'm part of the SMME Traders and Travelers team here in SARS. And I would like to confirm that I'll be facilitating today's program. And today's webinar will be focusing on the excise environment and the taxes that are in it. I will also want to highlight that for this webinar today, we're also joined by the interpreter, who will also be working with us and ensuring that the message reach all our traders. One of the South African government objectives is to preserve the environment, reduce pollution, and to give effect to certain international treaties on climate change, pollution. We need our traders to comply with the Customs and Excise Act. Through our data analysis and feedback from US traders in our different stakeholders, we have realized that most of our SMME traders and travelers do not understand the excise levy as a product. So this webinar today is focusing in giving the necessary knowledge and the expertise that our traders need to know as far as the excise levy is concerned. Our philosophy here in SARS is that all traders and taxpayers are genuinely honest and want to comply with all the excise laws and meet their tax obligation. So we want to do everything possible to ensure that we empower them, we educate them, and we give them all the necessary knowledge so that they can comply with all the tax obligation. So before we can start with our webinar this evening, I just want to take you through the program for the evening. We're going to have opening remarks, which will be given by Kofet Lebepe. Then after that, we will have Bongani Dlamini, who is going to give us the presentation for this evening. We've also created a platform where you can actually take questions and answers. And that platform will be led by Ms. Tsidi Molala. So we have two platforms for you, traders and travelers, where you can send us questions. One of them is through this Zoom chat, where you can send us questions as this webinar is progressing. And the second one is that you will send us questions through questions@sars.gov.za. So our colleagues are monitoring all these two platforms. So we encourage you to send us the questions. And then later we will create a platform where our expert will provide the necessary answers. Then towards the end of our webinar, we're going to have Dr. Rebone, who's going to give us the closing remarks for our webinar. We're happy to have you, and we thank you very much for making.
Apologies for the sound, the technical issues that we currently have. Whilst we wait for Hansen to reconnect, I will hand over to Mr. Kofet, who will provide us with the opening remarks. Kofet.
Thank you, Program Director. To all SMMEs, other traders and taxpayers as strategic partners on this journey, esteemed SARS colleagues, all panelists, ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of today's webinar is about excise environmental levies, as the Program Director indicated. And today we're going to share with you these key environmental levies and how they are administered by SARS as part of the South African tax types. We are going to share with you not only how we as South Africans are adhering to international obligations, but we're going to share with you how these levies are preserving the environment, reducing pollution, dealing with climate change commitments. SARS is mandated and empowered through the customs and excise legislation to administer these environmental levies and the newly legislated carbon tax. The key focus for today's session will be on the following environmental levies: the plastic bag levy, the electricity generation levy, the tire levy, motor vehicle CO2 emission levy, and the carbon tax. We're also going to share with you how these processes align to the SARS Vision 2024 and the 9 strategic objectives. The SARS Vision 2024 is not only about building a smart and modern institution with unquestionable integrity. It is also about having the trusted relationship with you and being admired. As SARS, we are here today to fulfill some of the key strategic objectives by making sure that we provide clarity and certainty to you as traders and taxpayers in order to make it easy for you to comply with the SARS legislation. Any failure to comply with this SARS legislation will be hard and costly to trade. We are here to work with and through you as stakeholders to improve the tax ecosystem as we give this education and clarity on the excise environmental levies. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, this progressive approach we are sharing today reminds me of Mr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he said, "We may have all come on different ships, but we are on the same boat now." So I would like to wish all of us a fruitful and constructive engagement during this first excise-related webinar on environmental levies as we work with you and through you as our key stakeholders. Program Director, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kofet. And we feel welcome for that warm welcome to our webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I would like to take the opportunity now to introduce to you our presenter for our environmental levy and taxes for this evening. Bongani Dlamini holds a diploma in education, training and development with over 20 years experience in the field. He joined SARS in September 2009 in then the Customs Academy, and he was working as a specialist. During the time at the Customs Academy, he played a major role in the planning and the delivery of training to customs modernization project. He is currently the manager, learning and development in charge of SARS Institution of Learning, Training, Material Development. Bongani is accredited to deliver strategic trade controls enforcement module for the World Customs Organization. I'm presenting to you the tried and tested presenter. Mr. Dlamini, you can take the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Good evening, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. As introduced, my name is Bongani Dlamini, and I'll be taking you through the presentation this evening. The presentation is, as has been mentioned, is on the environmental levy products and the sugary beverages levy. In my presentation, I'll do a little bit of introduction, and I'll show you the annual revenue collection. Then I'll take you through the individual environmental levy products. Then I'll cover the sugar beverages levy, and then I'll show you how you can register and license for any of those products. And then I'll touch on the declaration of the returns, and then we'll complete the presentation with the compliance that SARS expects of you as the client. The environmental levy is obviously levied on some of the locally manufactured goods, as well as some of the important equivalents in terms of part of the Customs and Excise Act, which is the Schedule number 1, Part 3 of the Act. Basically, the levy is aimed at influencing our behavior as users of different products, that we should be aware of the damage that some of the products that we use have on the environment. As you understand, the environmental levies are imposed and paid to SARS. So tonight, by way of starting with the environmental levies, we'll look at these particular levies. The one is on the tires, and then the other one is on the plastic bags. Everybody will understand and know that whenever you go onto a shop and purchase groceries, you will then be asked whether you want a plastic bag or not. Then we'll look at the electricity generation levy, which is levied at on all electricity generators who are above a particular threshold. We'll then look at the carbon dioxide emissions that are emitted by our motor vehicles as we commute to and from work and wherever it is in our country. We'll then look at the electric filament lamps that are not really energy efficient, that we apply a levy on. And last but not least, we'll then look at our carbon tax, which is our latest type of environmental levy that came into effect last year. So the slide that you're seeing right now is really on a value chain in terms of customs excise products. The first thing that will happen is that a registration and or licensing is done by a manufacturer. This licensing or registration is done with SARS. Levies are calculated based on the product type, which I will go through during my presentation to show you how much the levy is per particular product type. As with other excise products, these are self-assessed returns. So as the client who's licensed or registered, you assess yourself on how much you have produced and therefore how much you are liable for the levy to pay to SARS. You will then complete a self-assessment and then submit that return through e-filing. And then you'll make a payment depending on the product that you have or are licensed for. Payment calendars differ, as I said, depending on the product that you are licensed for. Others are monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Just looking at the 2021 financial year, just over 11 billion has been collected on the different types of environmental levies. The majority being the majority contributor being that of electricity, and then the lowest one being that of the incandescent light bulbs, which are not so energy efficient. Right. So the first one that we'll look at is the levy on tires. As you'll be aware, tires are made of majority rubber, which has got a very long life cycle in terms of biodegrading. So our sister department, which is the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries, encourages better ways of recycling, reusing, the disposal thereof, so that at the end, we do not affect or impact the environment through waste reduction. Right, so currently SARS collects these levies from the tire manufacturers and also motor vehicle industries. And the levy came into effect from the 1st of February in 2017. As you can see on my slide there, I've mentioned the actual part of the act that gives a rise for us to collect these levies. The tire levy rate is a flat rate, which is measured per kilogram net, irrespective of the size. The current rate of levy is R2.30 per kg net. If, however, for some reason we cannot determine the amount or the weight of the tires, we'll then go back to the design mess. When a designer designs a particular tire, they will have a particular mass in mind. Therefore, we'll use that mass and then add 10% on that mass and then calculate the required levy. Our payment dates and accounting period are displayed to you. So this levy is paid quarterly with the submission dates as shown on the presentation. And once you submit, the payment becomes due on the same day. Right. Then we'll move on to the levy on plastic bags. Basically, it goes back to what I said about the tires, that the life cycle of plastics is also very long. If you throw away plastic, it takes very long for it to biodegrade and become soil. So we've seen, if you watch National Geographic or any of the environmental programs on TV, you'll see that there's pollution in the ocean. Some of the plastic ends up in our drainage systems, which then causes increased flooding during times of rain. Obviously, the levy is payable by manufacturers in the Republic as per the Act in Schedule 1, Part 3A. And these producers of plastics need to be registered and licensed with SARS before they can start to manufacture. The plastic bags that we're talking about are those of the thickness of at least 24 microns or more. And at this current year, as we speak, the rate of the levy is 25 cents a bag, as it can be found in Schedule 1, Part 3A. So here, what we require from producers of plastic bags is that during the accounting period, they will submit to us the opening stock in terms of that accounting period. Then they will have to show us how much they've produced during that accounting period. And also during that accounting period, how many removals from their warehouses were made. And also then there will be a closing stock for that accounting period, which will then make up the opening stock for the next accounting period. The accounting periods are also quarterly with the submission dates as depicted on the presentation. And as always, you submit on that day and we will require you to make the payment on this very same day. Right, now we look at electricity generation levy. Basically here we're talking about when majority of our electricity capacity generation is made out of coal, which means we'll need to burn the coal, which produces greenhouse gases. Obviously, when the gases are in the atmosphere, we get rain and mixes up with the greenhouse gases. We might get acid rain, which is not good for our crops and also not good for human consumption of whatever we raise from the land. And also this then talks to the waste disposal of any ashes that we get from the burning of the coal. Right, so the levy is levied on non-renewable and environmentally hazardous sources. So here we are excluding biomass like geothermal, hydro, ocean currents, solar, tidal waves, or wind sources. So those are excluded from the levy. We're only concentrating on those that are non-renewable, which is coal, diesel, or nuclear, and obviously that are environmentally hazardous. The threshold that we look at for one to license is that you should be producing in excess of 5 megawatts, whatever plant, small plant that you have. If you're producing less than 5 megawatts, you are not required to license and therefore not required to submit a return to us. It obviously came into effect on the 1st of July 2019 as depicted there with the part of the Customs and Excise Act Schedule 1, Part 3. Right, so obviously it's only applicable to locally generated electricity. So as I said, you'll need to license with SARS before you can then produce or generate electricity in excess of 5 megawatts. Right. As with all the excise products, the electricity generation levy is self-assessed. So you assess yourself how much electricity you have produced and how much electricity did you either use for yourself if it's over 5 megawatts, and how much have you sold to the grid. And the current rate of duty is 3.5 cents per kilowatt. For this particular levy will require you to submit your return on a monthly basis. Now we look at carbon dioxide emissions levy from our motor vehicles. So here we're trying to reduce we're trying to reduce the emissions that go into the atmosphere in order to have better air quality, and obviously atmospheric visibility gets affected. If you look at big cities, you can see on pictures or on TV that some of the big cities in the world, you'll see an atmospheric fog that engulfs the city because of the emissions from vehicles as people go around. And obviously, this then leads to global warming. Okay. So the CO2 emissions levy came into effect in 2010 on the 1st of October, obviously payable by manufacturers of vehicles. I suppose you would have seen if you have recently, in the past couple of years, since 2010, if you have purchased a vehicle, if you look at your invoice, there is an amount that you need to pay for the motor vehicle CO2 emissions. And this is all dependent on the size of the car that you buy. The bigger the engine size, the more emissions the car or the vehicle produces, the more you then pay. At this point in time, the current rate of duty for the smaller vehicles is 120 rand per gram per kilometer CO2 emissions exceeding 95 grams per kilogram. So what we are saying here is anything below 95 grams per kilometer that your car emits is exempted, but anything above that will then be charged at 120 rand per gram per kilometer. The bigger cars are then, attract a higher rate of duty, which is 160 rand per gram per kilometer, emissions that exceed 175 grams per kilometer. Okay, just as an example, this was sourced from the International Council on Clean Transportation. You will see the culprits there that produce higher than the average carbon dioxide emissions as in gram per kilometer: your SUVs, your MPVs, your sport vehicles, and then your luxury vehicles. The accounting period also is quarterly, and as you can see on the presentation, the submission dates, and as always, you submit, then we'll expect you to pay on the same day. Right. Looking at the filament lamps, basically, as I said earlier, these are lamps that are not energy efficient. Currently, we don't really have manufacturers that manufacture these, and we're collecting this levy in majority on imported products. And for that, the rate of levy payable is 10 rand per lamp. Right, now we come to the carbon tax. Carbon tax obviously talks to greenhouse gas emissions. Greenhouse gas emissions, if you're interested, those are made up of carbon dioxide, methane, ozone, nitrous oxide, chlorofluorocarbons, otherwise known as CFCs, which obviously pollute the atmosphere, which leads to global warming, as if you are aware, that will then lead to climate changes. So this tax goes with the motto of a polluter pay principle, whereby as you emit, then you are liable for the payment for the CO2 ton equivalent that is emitted. So as I've explained earlier, what constitute greenhouse gases, but the measure thereof is equated to that of carbon dioxide tons. So the reason basically we want to get to carbon tax is that we want to lower the rate at which greenhouse gas emissions are increasing. So basically we want to, at least for now, instead of increasing the rate of greenhouse emissions, we want to flatten the curve, and then ultimately we want to then decrease the emissions. For that, we have introduced, together with our partner government departments, the National Treasury or the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries, we have introduced incentive to incentivize the emitters to go greener than they are right now. And I'll just touch quickly on the incentives. So on the incentives, we have given some allowances that are based on what we call the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Code, or otherwise called IPCC code. So all the activities that do emit greenhouse gases, whether it's mining, whether it's fuel combustion, they have been allocated and segregated using what we call an IPCC code, which defines the activity. And depending on that activity, then the client involved in that activity will get any of those allowances up to a maximum of a particular limit. On top of that, on top of the allowances, we have what we call deductions that the client who's an emitter can also claim from when they do submit their returns. The deductions thereof that we talk about, we could talk about sequestrated emissions. These are basically emissions that the emitter has reclaimed from the atmosphere and channeled them to become greener. Otherwise, the other deductions are renewable energy, where if, for example, you can show that in my production, I have purchased my electricity from a source or a supplier that uses, environmentally friendly source instead of the ones that we spoke about when we touched on the electricity generation part of the levies. Right. So at this point in time, the rate of duty is that of 120 per ton of carbon dioxide equivalent, and this was for 2019. And in 2020, we raised that to 127 rand per ton of carbon dioxide equivalent. We then go gradually and go into a phased approach to say from 1 June 2019 to that 1 December 2022, that was the first phase. The second phase is 2023 to 2030, and the carbon tax rate will increase annually by inflation plus 2% until 2022, and annually by inflation thereafter. Right. The thresholds for licensing are prescribed per activity in the Schedule 2 of the Carbon Tax Act, As I explained, if you will remember, I spoke about the IPCC code, which codes which define the activity that each of the industry members or our taxpayers are involved in. And those are defined in there whether the threshold has been reached, whether you need to license or not. So those are as per the IPCC code or activity that the client is involved in. Returns are due on the penultimate day of July each year. So this particular tax or carbon tax or levy is on an annual basis. When you do submit your return, it depends on how you choose to submit to us. You can either use submitting the Section 4.1 of the Carbon Tax Act, which says that you are using an approved Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries method, or you can then select to choose submit using Section 4.2, which means that you will need to do your own calculations to then get to the net emissions, depending on whether you are in fuel combustion stationary. So an example of that is if you own a fleet of generators, diesel generators that when combined are over the threshold, or you are using fuel combustion, non-stationary, so that would be a fleet of boats or ships if you are involved in seafood business, if you send ships onto the sea to go and fish for the product. The others are fugitive emissions, either in oil or natural gas business. Others are fugitive in coal mining and handling, or others are industrial processes like the easy example that I can think of is that of manufacturing of cement, as an example. So depending on which one you decide when you submit your return, whether it's for Section 4.1 of the Carbon Tax Act or Section 4.2 of the Carbon Tax Act, you will then differ how you will submit your return. Right. Now that I'm done with the environmental levies, I'll go into the health promotion levy, which in this point in time, the only one that we have is that of the sugary beverages levy. So basically here, what we are trying to do, or at least what the Department of Health is trying to do, is to reduce the risk in the population of that what we call non-communicable diseases like diabetes, obesity, heart diseases, etc. So it has been shown that there's a link between a human sugar intake and the possibility of that human getting either of those communicable diseases. So we're trying to reduce that. Right. So the levy came into effect in 2018 on the 1st of April. As always, any producer needs to either register or license with SARS before they can start manufacture. Here, the threshold for either you register or license is 500 kilograms. So anybody who produces a total amount of, let's use soft drinks, for example, as an example, anybody who produces less than 500 kilograms of total cool drinks will only need to register with us so that we know about them. Anybody who then produces a total amount of soft drinks with total sugar content more than 500 kilograms, they will need to license. Licensing means you then need to then submit your return for the production. And these licenses are renewed annually. Right, at this point in time, the rate of duty for these sugary beverage levies is 2.21 cents per gram of sugar content that exceeds 4 grams per 100 mils. So if you pick up a cool drink next time, just look at the label there. That will tell you whether how much sugar you are consuming per 100 kilograms. So what we're saying here is anything less than 4 grams, if the cool drink that you're going to consume has got less than 4 grams per 100 mils, then it will be exempt from sugary beverages levy. Anything above the 4 grams will then be charged at 2.21 cents per gram. Right, just as a matter of interest, some of the examples of products that are either subject to the levy or not, your normal soft drink would be subject to the levy, of course, provided that the content of the sugar is obviously more than 4 grams per 100 mils. Concentrates like your oros, your wholes, your powdered drinks that you will mix with water, they are subject to the levy. What we use here is that the manufacturer's specifications that says this sachet has to be mixed with 10 liters, and at 10 liters, this is the amount of sugar that you will have. Therefore, we'll go with that. Fruit juices, we'll always think that fruit juices will be healthier, but unfortunately, it's not the case. Any of the blended fruit juices are subject to the levy, but any of the 100% pure fruit juices are exempt from that, because that's fructose, which comes from, it's a natural sugar from the fruit. So it hasn't been tampered with. Energy drinks, of course, they are subject to the levy. Right. Now we look at the registration and licensing. So previously, on the previous slides, I had indicated to you the value chain of the products that I'm presenting to you today. So all we are saying here is that you will set up your factories and everything as a company, and you look at your installed or combined capacity, whether is it equal or greater than the prescribed activity threshold. If it is, then you are required to license with us. Right, and the licensing and registration process starts with the applicant or the client who wants to, make a business out of any of these products. You will submit our application form called DA 185, and this goes with different annexures depending on the product that you are applying for. On our website, we have extensive information on which annexure you will have to complete for which product, and then which supporting documents you'll need to submit. In some instances, we'll need to verify the financial status of the applicant. This is done by our security management colleagues. We'll verify whether bond requirements are necessary. Then the next step is premises verification, which we'll do to verify the existence of the warehouse, because we need to know whether the warehouse exists or not. And also verify the requirements of the warehouse as prescribed. The particular warehouses need to have this particular plan. You need to submit a plan for that, whether it's got security features, what security features it has. So we might need to come out and do a premises verification. And then, of course, we have our last part, which is the approval or refusal, depending on whether you have met the requirements. The refusal will obviously come with a reason to tell you we missed that or that, and then you can then fix those and resubmit. If approved, then we'll then issue warehouse approval details, including the warehouse numbers and whatever other information that comes with the approval. Okay, so just a little boring licensing conditions that I need to cover so that you know. The license is issued in respective of the premises based on the type of application. The activities for which the license is required, the person and conditions imposed be reflected on the specific license issued, so that we will do that when we issue with the license. And then applications should be done on individual warehouses separately, except for carbon tax, because carbon tax really, we call it a warehouse, but actually it's not a warehouse. If you think of somebody who runs a fleet of malls with each one with a generator, that's not a warehouse per se. So for carbon tax, we license the entity that is above the threshold. So you don't need to give us, or license. We don't license the individual generators with the example that I have used. No alterations may be made on such licenses by the applicant, and we will and may require the license for you to show us the license at a particular point in time when we do come and visit to do an inspection. Licenses are not transferable. However, we are able to, with the permission of the commissioner, allow a license to be transferred to an approved premises, obviously without any change in the ownership of the premises. Excise may at any reasonable time inspect the warehouse consent to verify whether it complies with the prescribed requirements. So what we're saying is anytime we can come and make an appointment and come and say whether you still meet the license requirements. Okay, so now that you have been licensed or registered, you now do your production. We now require you to then declare and submit to us and self-assess yourself the levy, the amount of levy that is due to us, and that you do it on e-filing. But before that, majority of our products have got a manual form that you will complete as depicted on my presentation. All those supporting documents, those are manual forms that you will complete and make sure the calculations are correct. And once you are done with that, then you'll go on to e-filing and submit your and capture what you had done on the manual form and capture that and submit to us. And of course, once you have submitted, you have seen previously on different excise products that we've covered today. Once you submit, then we expect you to make the payment. So compliance, I'm stressing the payment on the same day as submission, because if you do not then comply with our requirement that you pay on the same day, might lead you into trouble. So we've got the penal provision, which is section 78 to 86A, that we use as a guide in order to penalize non-compliance. So the Act also differentiates between less serious offenses and serious offenses, and the severity of the penalties increases with regard to the extent of the infringement. Obviously, we are here this evening to inform you and educate you. And once we have done that and you still continue to be non-compliant, then we are able to then increase the severity of the penalties that we impose. Some of the penalties could include monetary penalties, either criminal prosecution if that is proven, or we could even suspend or cancel whether it's a deferment account, whether it's the registration that we had given you, whether it's the licensing, whether it's accreditation or designation. So we're able to, if in severe cases, we're able to suspend or cancel those. Obviously, suspension will mean that you'll have to improve and then show us proof that you have then improved, and then we can reinstate and see how we go together in partnership. So for more information, just in conclusion, for more information, you'll be able from now on, you'll be able to go onto the SARS YouTube channel. Obviously, this is now being built with different information that, like tonight, so this video will be available there. And as we go on doing all these webinars, they'll be included in that website. Other than that, your best bet will be your usual SARS website, www.sars.gov.za. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of my presentation, and I hope you have learned a lot, and looking forward to your question and answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bongani. We highly appreciate for this presentation. And thank you very much for this insight information that you have just given us. we are indeed in our journey to provide clarity and certainty to you as our traders. So I just want to remind our attendees, our traders, that we are available in our YouTube. We are also encouraging all our traders to send us the questions to the email address, questions@sars.gov.za. We further encourage you to send us questions in this Zoom platform. You can just send it through this chat. So we encourage you that you send us the question so that our team of panelists should be able to provide the necessary answers to you. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to take you to our next step of our program. We are now going to the platform of questions and answers. And Ms. Tidimolala is going to lead that, and she's accompanied by the experts around her. Tidimolala is a chartered accountant by profession. She's currently leading the small, medium, micro, and enterprise business segment within SARS. Tidimolala has been participating in a number of audit and risk committees within our government institution. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to bring in Tidimolala with her team of panelists to respond to the question that we have sent us. Let me remind you once more, please send your questions through this chat or send your questions through our email address, questions@sars.gov.za. Ms. Molala, you can come in stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. As you indicated, the environmental taxes are but a means for us to preserve our environment, but we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for the future generation. I will be leading the question and answer session. I have a panel of experts accompanying me, and I'm going to ask them to have their video on. I have Simpiwe Hlazo, who's a subject matter expert from Excise. We have Ms. Patricia Jones, who's our product and process lead. We also have Ms. Ayanda Takela, who's from e-filing, our e-filing expert. So if you have any e-filing questions, please raise your questions. Then from licensing and registration, we have Ms. Nora Mutete, who's our operations manager. We currently have a question. The first question was about whether we're going to be sharing the presentations. As Bongani mentioned, we're going to share the presentation on our website. We're also going to have the video on our YouTube channel, and this will be posted tomorrow. The second question that we currently have, Simpiwe, it's relating to the fossil fuel combustion emissions. They are asking if SARS is going to be decreasing the 60% allowance. Simpiwe, do you have an answer for us?
Yes, thank you, Siri. That question there is it's basically what, if I can try to answer it, it's policy related. National Treasury directs the policy direction for implementation by SARS. So currently, that is a prescribed law that there is 60% until such time that the legislation is reviewed and there is new allowances published. The 60% will still be there. But we must just remember one thing. This is the first phase of the carbon tax until the end of December 2022. So until then, it will be, checked how is it been going. At this phase, basically, the rationale was that manufacturers will be given time to transform their production facilities into greener technologies. They will be given this period. So that's why there is such high allowances given to them. I mean, you will see the highest allowances is up to 95% if you add all of them. Because there's other 10% and other 10%, but the highest you can get is 95%. You'll probably pay your carbon tax on 5% of your emissions. The reason for this, like I said, the rationale was that this is the time where the manufacturers or the production facilities are given time to transform their facilities into greener technologies. But obviously, going forward, I'm sure these allowances will be decreasing to lesser allowances going forward. But that is the territory of the National Treasury. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Simpiwe. The next question relates to any provisions, and I'm taking it is asking about incentives that are available for SMMEs given the challenging times. I'm assuming you're referring to COVID and the economic situation. I'm going to ask Patricia about the tax reliefs, or even on the excise side, reliefs that are available to SMMEs, and I will just add on the tax side. Patricia.
Thank you, Chidi, and good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Currently, there's no tax reliefs for SMMEs specifically in relation to environmental levies at this stage, but we are working to look at how we can be inclusive and provide benefits to SMMEs. So we're trying to simplify the processes for SMMEs in their application processes, and also looking at deferment incentives for them, where they don't have to, provide exorbitant bonds when they do business with SARS from an SMME perspective, and various other incentives that we will make available in due course for these SMMEs. So keep looking at our website, because we will be posting all of these initiatives and levies or sort of incentives for these clients on our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia, for the comprehensive answer. And just on the tax side, we have tax reliefs that were recently introduced by National Treasury, and they relate to deferment of the PAYE account, as well as additional incentives for ETI being employee tax incentives. Again, we urge you to visit our website. We have an SMME web page where you can get more information on the incentives. We don't have any more questions. So it could mean that Bongani was very clear, or the subject is a bit confusing, but we do welcome your comments. We're going to be sending out a questionnaire after the session, but also you can still ask questions on the email address questions@sars.gov.za. If you need more information on the environmental levies or any tax product, you can visit our website. Once again, it's www.sars.gov.za. For customs-related questions, you can go to the customs and excise option on our landing page. Then you click on what's new in customs and excise, and then you just look for a heading called excise. You'll get all that information and a lot of FAQs. Again, if you need other information relating to SMMEs, we have an SMME web page on our website on the landing page. Thank you, Chair. Over back to you, Program Director.
Yes, thank you, Tsidi. Before you can go, I can see some few questions coming in, Tsidi, on the chat again. Can I request you and your team to look at those questions? I think there are two, if there are not three, Tsidi.
Okay, apologies, it was delayed on my side. All right, there's a question from Jason relating to carbon tax registration and licensing. They are complaining about a backlog, waiting for 6 to 10 months to get a case number. Will the process be streamlined for the renewals? Are we going to see any efficiencies? I'm going to ask Simpiwe to answer the question. Simpiwe?
Come again, which question today?
The one relating to licensing for carbon tax. There is a bit of delay relating to registration, the delay was as long as 6 to 10 months. So they're asking for the renewal process. Is the process going to be streamlined? Have we improved the process? Are there efficiencies in the process currently?
Yeah, I think Nora can help us on this one. Yes, they are dealing with this process.
Thank you. Nora?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you, Chair. For licensing and registration, we have built in digital processes whereby clients can be able to email applications to the nearest customs branch. It's important that you look at the branch that is the nearest in your region. The information can be obtained under www.sars.gov.za under RLA page, licensing, registration, and accreditation. The renewals needs to start by the 1st of December. And it's important that the client can start submitting their renewals by the 1st of December at the nearest customs branches. In instances whereby you are facing challenges with delays or obtaining your case number, you are welcome to send escalation directly to National Registration Team. And the email address is also on the website. It's customs ssmreg@sars.gov.za, where we will be able to facilitate and assist you to get assistance as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. So the information is on our website. We have looked at improving the processes, and you can now email directly to the regions, as Nora said. Thanks, Nora. The next question relates to tire levies, and I am going to again ask Simpiwe to answer the question. And it talks about the levies that are paid for tires that are fitted on cars that are exported by OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers. Do you have an answer for us, Simpiwe?
Yes, thank you, Sidi. On that one, on tire levies, the OEMs are licensed with SARS and excise as manufacturers of vehicles. So there's a specific, under Schedule 6, specific refund and rebate items for that particular purposes. So on tires that have been exported, there is, the OEMs are able to claim a refund on that on the excise return itself. So there are no, they are able to deduct that amount. Basically, they don't pay duty on exported tires. I think that's the question. That's what the question says, whether the levy is paid on tires that are exported. I'm saying yes, you pay, but you are able to claim a refund on it. There's a specific refund item provided for this for OEMs. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So they are exempted. Product Director, I don't see any more questions on my side. I'm going to ask Gumani, who's assisting me with the questions, to check if he can see any questions before we close the session.
All right, thank you very much, Sidi. I can confirm that there are no new questions. There was a first question that came through by mail. I think that was not dealt with. However, the facilitator did indicate that the slides and the recording will be available on YouTube site and on our SARS website. So that is the assurance that we can give to our viewers and to our traders and travelers. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Gumani. Product Program Director, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sidi and your team. We really appreciate the feedback. Very, very interesting questions and very, very exciting questions. We really welcome these questions. Before I can bring Dr. Ribone, I just want to highlight that the customs and excise modernization journey is back in SARS. So we're doing digitalization, most of our processes. And I'm aware that the license and registration team is reviewing the whole license and registration process to accommodate you as SMME traders and traveler. So look out for that and look out for that exciting journey going forward. So thank you very much, Sidi. As Sidi have highlighted, all these questions will be downloaded in our website under frequently asked questions. So we want to encourage you to go to our website and relook at those questions. But most importantly, if there are questions that we couldn't answer today, you can still go there. Our team will be able to answer those questions. Thank you very much, Sidi. Thank you very much for the team. Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting to the end of our webinar this evening. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Riboni Kapo. She's the head of the Tax and Trader Education at SARS. This is the new unit that is looking at empowering and educating our traders and traveler and taxpayers in this organization. Thank you very much, Riboni. You can come in.
Thank you so much, Mr. Program Director. Today's discussion illustrates the importance of constantly providing clarity and certainty on our excise compliance requirement. More importantly, to create a space for information exchange on these environmental levies. I was excited that I was also learning. You know, every time we never stop learning. My sense is that there is an appetite for conversation on these levies as administered by SARS. Most importantly, it is vital that we constantly evaluate and assess if we are able to make it easy for industries and traders in this space to comply and understand the obligation. Let me thank the following people who made it possible that we achieve our objectives today. And they are the Taxpayer and Trade Education team, the SMMA team, and also the Excise and Custom team for doing such a sterling job. We actually pride ourselves with the power of collaboration. More importantly, also thank the media, communication, and IT people involved in setting the stage for all of us. To our presenters, I hope you didn't confuse us, but you actually enlightened us more. The chair, the presenter, the Q&A team, we thank you for educating all of us about the topic. That is a little bit complex, but today I'm feeling a little bit better that I can even go and check the label on how much sugar it is there. And I know that this is a behavioral change levy that I must actually look up after my body. I can only hope you have equally enjoyed the level of engagement, or if you still want to engage with us, you're most welcome to continue engaging with us. And to our participants, Lebohang, Hitha, Asoyu, and most importantly, to all of you who have taken time from your schedule to attend this session, we want to say a big thank you. Be assured that you are part of our ecosystem and therefore an important partner. In conclusion, as SARS, we continue to enhance relationship with our traders, a relationship based on cooperation in order to achieve the highest level of clarity and certainty, and to ensure that we get to improve voluntary compliance. We use webinars as one of our connection boosting opportunity. We will continue to monitor the impact of our work to ensure that we bring needs-based education to you on a continual basis. Therefore, your feedback is key. Please get in touch with us if you identify a topic of importance to you or things that you want clarity on. As we journey over to providing clarity and certainty and making things easy for you, but we also want to make our world smarter and better for us to engage with you. Please note that we are preparing to have our next webinar, which is talking about illicit trade and counterfeit procedures webinar on the 7th of October. In closing, I would like to have a quote to you. Sustainable development is about enhancing human well-being, as we have heard, over time, and managing a broad portfolio of economic, social, environmental assets that society has at its disposal in order to sustain a flow of consumption. This is by World Bank. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Program Director.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ribon. Thank you very much to our traders. We have come to an end of our webinar. I just want to ensure you that the presentation that has been presented this evening, by tomorrow it will be in our website. And further, we want to hear from you. We encourage you to do the survey that will be circulated in our YouTube and send back to us so that we can be in the position to know what is it that we can improve with our next webinar. We're also excited that in this webinar this evening, for the first time, we're also joined by the junior board in SARS. These are the young leaders that are developed for the future. And they will be participating and playing a prominent role in our webinar and leadership going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, traders, leadership colleagues, please have a good evening. It has been great to have you in our webinar. Thank you very much. We will close with a video, and your tax matters. Thank you.
All your years of paying tax, thank you for every life you saved and every risk you braved. When you saw our healthcare workers on the front lines battling COVID, you rose to the occasion and gave them the tools to save lives. Without your tax compliance, we wouldn't be able to fight a good fight. When you saw our vulnerable communities, you provided for them. To all taxpayers and traders, thank you. Continue to pay your tax. Your tax matters.